the well-known topic for today, the accomplishment of the Philippines President of the Third Republic.
Did the Marcos regime truly protect the nation?
Were Filipinos genuinely free during the martial law, or they were silent by fear?
How truly Ninoy Aquino's death impacted Marcos' administration?
How the People Power Revolution compelled Marcos to step down.
The presidency of Cory Aquino. Stay tuned for the latest updates. Philippine News will begin.
Good day, people. I am Eunice Juan,
And I am Arkin Sarabas.
and you are watching Phil Story News Live now. On June 9, 1945, the Philippine Congress reconvened for the first time after the war, with Brigadier General Manuel Rojas elected as the Senate President. In April 1946, the newly established Liberal Party's Manuel Rojas defeated the Nacionalista Party Sergio Osmeña in the election.
Manuel Rojas has been elected as the third of the President of the Commonwealth on July 4, 1946. The Philippines celebrated its independence and the inauguration of the Third Republic of the Philippines. This was a historic moment, was marked by the lowering by the American flag by Ambassador Paul McNutt and the raising of the Philippines flag by President Manuel Rojas.
And here's Jafar Amer to inform us about the accomplishments of the Philippines President of the Third Republic.
Here are the accomplishments of the Philippines President of the Third Republic. During Manuel Rojas' presidency with VP Elpidio Quirino, the Philippines secured a $25 million loan from the US and received $10 million from the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administrations. The Philippine Military Bases Agreement and the Belt Trade Act were established, granting free trade relation with the US. The party amendment allowed US citizens equal with Filipinos in developing natural resources and operating public utilities to aid post-war rehabilitation efforts. During Elpidio Quirino presidency with VP Fernando Lopez, improved social welfare with initiative like the Boys Town of the Philippines, enhanced foreign relations, serving as goodwill ambassador, implemented economic measures through institutions like the Agricultural Credit and Cooperation Financing Administration and the President Action Committee on Social Amelioration, developed key infrastructure projects such as the Maria Cristina and the Ambuclao Dam. During Ramon Magsaysay presidency with VP Carlos P. Garcia, successful amnesty program for Hukbalahap rebels, opened Malacanang Palace to the public, formation of the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, Laurel Langley Agreement, Philippines-Japan Reparation Agreement, establishment of the Social Security System, Land Tenure Reform Act to tackle agrarian issues. During Carlos P. Garcia presidency with VP Diosdado Macapagal, implementing the Filipino First policy, introducing the austerity program, and negotiating the Bolian-Serrano Agreement. During Diosdado Macapagal's presidency with VP Emmanuel Pelaez, implemented the Deconture Program and Agricultural Land Reform Law, asserted the official Philippine claim to Sabah and joined the Mapilindo Confederation, transferred Independence Day from July 4 to June 12, initiated the use of Filipino language in official documents. During Ferdinand Marcos' presidency with VP Fernando Lopez, government finances stabilized through better tax collections, new tax laws, and loans from foreign banks, increased rice production through promotion of high-yield rice seeds like the IR8 Miracle Rice, and building more irrigation systems, constructions of bridges, roads like the North Diversion Road, and numerous schoolhouses, improved Philippine National Railways, crackdown on smuggling and crime syndicates, and the Communist New People Army, held the Manila Summit Conference in 1996. And that's all for the accomplishment of the Philippine President of the Third Republic. Back to you, Eunice.
Thank you, Jafar Amer. Here is the next new report. Did the Marcos regime truly protect the nation? Now, here's Omar Amida to inform us about the Marcos regime.
The Philippines gained an independence on July 1946. There's been a persistent push in the Philippines to amend the outdated 1935 Constitution. The concerns with the old constitutions are clear. It mirrored American colonialism, granted excessive power to the president, created an imbalance among branches of the government, include a party amendment from American imperialism, lacked sufficient election oversight by government, formed a powerless government accountability office against corruption, and lacked provisions for local autonomy. The Communist Party of the Philippines was formed in 1969, led by Jose Maria Sison. In the same year, the CPP established the New People's Army with Commander Dante Bernabé, Boscanos as a leader. On June 1, 1971, the Constitutional Convention started with elected members. On August 21, 1971, the Plaza Miranda massacre took place during the Liberal Party event, killing 8 people. This convinced Marcos to suspend the habeas corpus on September 21. In January 1972, the writ was reinstated. Then, on September 23, 1972, after an alleged murder attempt on Secretary on Defense, Juan Punci Enrile, Marcos proclaimed martial law regardless of the fact that it had been signed on September 21. Back to you, Arken.
Thank you, Omar Amiza. The President Marcos announced martial law on television, signed on September 21. Many political opposition members, media, and academics were arrested for alleged rebel sympathy or community ties, including Senator Benigno Aquino Jr. and Jose Jokno.
Martial law imposed nationwide curfew, banned rallies, and restricted firearms possession. Marcos took control of media outlets and public utilities like Meralco, PLDT, Nawasa, PNR, the Philippine Airlines, and the other public utilities. Here is Regina Camo to continue the news coverage under martial law. Were Filipinos genuinely free during the martial law, or they were silent by fear?
After the proclamation, the Constitutional Convention reconvened and completed the new constitution on November 29, 1972. Marcos decided to delay the vote and set up citizen assemblies instead. These assemblies voted against holding a countrywide vote. However, they did approve the 1973 Constitution, agreeing to keep martial law and put off elections for at least 7 years. On January 17, 1973, the President said the people agreed to get rid of the Congress and set up a new government where the Parliament makes the rules. From 1972 to 1978, the President exercised absolute legislative power. On September 26, 1972, President Marcos issued Presidential Decree No. 2, which established a land reform program. On October 21, 1972, he restricted his focus to rice and cornfields via Presidential Decree No. 27, limits land retention to 7 hectares. Tensions developed as the Moro National Liberation Front, led by Nur Minsawari, conflicted with government forces in the pursuit of Bangsamoro independence. In 1975, a truce was established with the MNLF, which included Islamic states. On December 23, 1976, the MNLF forced Marcos to sign the Tripoli Agreement, negotiated by Colonel Momar of Libya, which marked a crucial step toward peace. On October 16 and 17, 1976, most barangay voters agreed to continue martial law and approved amendments proposed by Marcos. These changes included creating the Interim Batasang Pambansa, where the President would also serve as Prime Minister and have legislative power until martial law ended. The President could also enact laws outside the Batasang Pambansa in emergencies. These amendments essentially extended Marcos' dictatorship as he retained legislative control despite the creation of the Batasang Pambansa. On January 17, 1981, Marcos ended martial law. The opposition said it was just a cover-up for Pope John Paul II's visit. Many places like Philippine Heart Center, National Kidney Institute, and Lung Center of the Philippines were built during martial law. There were also big projects like the San Juanico Bridge, Bliss Housing, and the Light Railway Transit in Metro Manila. On June 16, 1981, after martial law ended, the first presidential election in 12 years took place. Marcos won by a huge margin of 88% against lesser-known candidates, Alejo Santos and Bartolome Cabangbang. The main opposition parties, Unido and Laban, refused to participate. Back to you, Eunice.
Thank you, Regina Camo. In March 1980, former Senator Ninoy Aquino had a heart attack after over 7 years in prison. He refused surgery by Marcos employed doctors at the Philippine Heart Center and preferred treatment in the US or returning to Fort Bonifacio. Imelda Marcos intervened, offering him medical treatment in the US with conditions that he wouldn't speak against Marcos.
Aquino had a surgery in Dallas, Texas, then recovered and traveled after a month. Marcos decided to extend his stay abroad for medical reasons. Aquino later ended his arrangement with Imelda. He lived in nation in Newton, Boston, Massachusetts with Corey and their children. For 3 years of self-exile, during the period he wrote 2 books, gave lectures, and went across the United States delivered speech. Here's Princess Garcia continuing the news report on how Ninoy Aquino's death affected on Marcos' administration.
Marcos accused Aquino of planning bombings in Metro Manila in 1981 to 1982. Aquino denied supporting violent revolution but warned that radical oppositions might turn to it soon. In early 1983, Aquino became concerned about the country's damaging political and economic conditions as well as Marcos' illness allegations. He wanted to speak with Marcos upon the importance of restoring democracy to the country. On August 21, 1983, former Senator Ninoy Aquino returned to the Philippines. As he stepped off the plane, he was shot dead by multiple gunshots on the tarmac of Manila International Airport. The Aviation Security Command guards were supposed to protect him. There were different stories about who killed Aquino and his alleged killer, Rolando Galman. The Presidential Fact-Finding Board investigated these conflicting reports. The whole country was angry about Ninoy's murder. His funeral was the longest and biggest in the Philippine history, with around 2 million people attending. After his death, there were continuous large rallies and demonstrations in Manila. Marcos quickly formed a commission to look into the Aquino Galvan Dongol murder case. The initial commission was dissolved and a new independent board led by Justice Corazon Agrava was established. Their investigation revealed that Aquino's assassination was planned by the military, contradicting Marcos' claim that it was the work of communists. They discovered that Galman was not the only one who shot and killed Aquino. The Agrava investigation accused 7 military officers, included Brigadier General Lothar Custodio. Another report named 25 military officers, including valuable leaders such as General Fabian Ver, General Prospero Olivas, and General Custodio. Following the trial, the Sanganihang Bayang Court acquitted all 26 of the accused. This provoked protests in Metro Manila as thousands rallied against the decision. In 1985, despite political and economic instabilities, there were fears of a violent overthrow of the Marcos regime in the Philippines. Massive rallies and protests were held frequently in Metro Manila. According to reports, the White House ordered the Marcos government to restore public trust. Foreign news organizations began to spotlight Marcos' loss of confidence. On February 7, 1986, Marcos called for a quick special presidential elections. The KBL party nominated Marcos for presidential, while Tolentino, a former Marcos opponent, was convinced to run as his vice president. Meanwhile, the leader of the United Nationalist Democratic Party, Salvador Doy H. Laurel, chose the vice presidency, allowing Corazon Cory Aquino, Ninoy Aquino's widow, to run for president. During the campaign, President Marcos used intimidation techniques such as guns, wounds, and golds to convince voters in support of the Marcos-Tolentino ticket, while the ruling party coordinated an extensive plan to manipulate elections result in favor of KBL candidates. After the election, there were conflicting results. Marcos-Tolentino won according to the official count by COMELEC, but Aquino and Laurel were ahead in the unofficial count by National Movement for Free Election. The confusion worsened when 30 COMELEC computer operators left, claiming their figures were tampered with. Despite this, Marcos and Tolentino were declared winners by COMELEC, and Speaker Nicanor Iniguez confirmed them as President and Vice President in the Batasan Pambansa. Massive protests erupted due to alleged election fraud. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines and the U.S. Senate condemned the election. Mrs. Aquino urged the people to join a civil disobedience protest to force Marcos to resign. On February 16, 1986, Mrs. Aquino and the opposition gathered over 3 million people at the Luneta Grandstand for the Tagumpay ng Bayan rally. Back to you, Arkin.
Thank you, Princess Garcia. On February 22, Saturday, Lieutenant Michael Asperin and 18 other soldiers were cut at the Bonifacio Naval Station by Marine Guards for being there without permission and suspected of spying. Defense Minister Enrile and Vice Chief of Staff General Fidel Ramos held a press conference at Camp Aguinaldo, Ministry of National Defense to announce they no longer support of the president.
This marked the beginning of the People Power Revolution, allegedly initiated by the reform of AFP movement led by Colonel Gregorio Gringo Nasan. Ramos urged other military units and police to join their cause. Here's Argel Polanco to continue the news coverage of how the People Power Revolution compelled Marcos to step down.
Radyo Veritas, a Catholic station, reported on the conference. Marcos encouraged Enrile and Ramos to surrender over his own press conference. Despite the possibility of military conflicts, Archbishop Jaime Cardinal Sin encouraged Filipinos to help rebel leaders at EDSA by providing assistance, food, and supplies. From February 23 to 25, people gathered on EDSA armed with prayers, rosaries, and a statue of Our Lady of Fatima. Government troops led by General Artemio Tatyar attempted to face rebel soldiers but were stopped by human barricades created by the crowd. Despite threats, the people maintained their positions, leading some government troops to depart. By the 24th, almost 3 million people were occupying EDSA from Ortigas to Cubao. Rebel helicopters attacked Guillermo Air Base, damaged presidential vehicles, and launched a rocket at Malacanang, causing minor damage. Many offices abandoned and the majority of the AFP had changed sides. Cory Aquino became President of the Philippines on the morning of the 25th at Club Filipino in Philippines. With Laurel as Vice President, Ramos was promoted to Chief of Staff, and Enrile was reinstated, among other politicians attending. President Cory Aquino thanked everyone for their support in her inauguration speech. She urged Filipinos to come together for national reconciliation, echoing Ninoy's ideals. She emphasized the need to rebuild the country and called for continued prayers. A moment later, Marcos held his own inauguration at Malacanang. He took his oath on live TV but was interrupted by rebel troops during his speech. At this point, thousands had gathered at the barricades of Lucha in the palace. They were stopped from entering the palace by loyal soldiers who had secured the area. The priest intervened to calm the angry attendees, asking with them not to be aggressive. Marcos was later advised by the White House to escape, which makes him disappointed later. Marcos spoke with Enrique and requested a safe passage. After a wide message began, Marcos and his family were flown to Clark Air Base, then to walk and finally deployed later to a priest. When news of Marcos' flight spread, people celebrated in the streets. Back to you, Eunice.
Thank you, Argel Polanco.
Restoring democracy was Cory's Aquino's first priority. She reinstated the legal rights in some parts of Mindanao, particularly in Region 9 and Region 12, and released political prisoners and let the public see presidential police. People were shocked by the luxurious way of the life of Marcos' family for 20 years, including Imelda Marcos' excessive collection of shoes, gowns, perfume, and luxurious possessions. Here's Mark Suyat continued the news of coverage during the presidency of Cory Aquino.
March 5, 1986, President Aquino declared Proclamation 3, Introduction to Provisional Constitution, also called the Freedom Constitution. President Aquino aimed to stabilize the nation by replacing the Constitution of 1973 and 1986. June 2, 1986, she appointed the Constitutional Commission to draft a new constitution within 3 months. On October 15, 1986, the commissioner led by former Supreme Court Justice Cecilia Munoz Palma approved the draft by a vote of 45 to 2. The new constitution underwent a plebiscite on February 2, 1987, where it was ratified peacefully and fairly by the people. The 1987 Constitution has key features. 1. It promotes freedom from nuclear weapons, protect families' life, and ensure equality for women. It also fights against corruption and political dynasty. 2. It includes a Bill of Rights banning the death penalty and torture. 3. It set up a commission on human rights to protect people's rights. 4. It established a presidential system with checks and balances. 5. The president term is limited for 6 years without re-election, and relatives can be appointed to public office. 6. Martial law can only be declared for 60 days, and Congress can revoke or extend it. 7. There are 2 chambers of Congress, with specific safeguard for its power. 8. People can directly propose law constitutionals, amendments, and impeachment cases. 9. Local governments have autonomy, and regions like Cordilleras and Muslim Mindanao have special status. 10. Education up to high school level is free. 11. Government powering is regulated by transparency and oversight from Congress and the Monetary Board. On May 11, 1987, was one of the most peaceful and fair elections in the Philippines. Lubito Salonga became a Senate President, and Roman Mitro became the Speaker of the House of Representatives. President Aquino faced the challenges left by the previous administration, including economic management and large foreign debt of over $26 billion. In 1986, Cory Aquino spoke to the U.S. Congress about the Filipino fight against dictatorship and received a standing ovation. Time magazine named her Woman of the Year. In 1987, the government initiated a comprehensive agrarian reform program under Republic Act 6657, unlike Marcos' Presidential Decree 27. Part including all agricultural lands, whether private or public, regardless of the crops grown. The government also worked to recover the Marcos family ill-gotten wealth and their cronies through the Presidential Commission on Good Government. President Cory Aquino encountered several co-op attempts. In July 1987, Marcos loyalists tried to set up a rival government at the Manila Hotel with Arturo Tolentino as temporary president. In August 1987, a co-op named God Save the Queen posed a serious threat, but General Fidel Ramos foiled the attempt and arrested its leader, Colonel Gregorio Honasan. A major co-op occurred in December 1989, where government and rebel forces clashed in Metro Manila, attempting to attack Malacanang. Honasan, the leader, was detained again, but later granted freedom under Ramos' administration. During her presidency, the Philippines faced major challenges, like the eruption of Mount Pinatubo in 1991, which severely hurt the economy. This happened around the time the U.S.-Philippine military base agreement ended. In 1990, an earthquake in Central Luzon caused 1,700 deaths and damaged infrastructure. Aquino also dealt with a power shortage, leading to the frequent blackouts nationwide. That concludes the presidency of Cory Aquino. Back to you, Arkin.
Thank you, Mark Suyat. And that will be all for the news updates this day. And once again, I am Arkin Sarenas.
And I am Eunice and Juan. Thank you for watching.
And have a great day ahead.
The Phil Story News will return.